Well, that was one hell of a season finale. I swear, people might say this is a slow show at times, but it always manages to deliver in the end, and this finale gave me everything I was hoping for. Let's talk about the season 2 finale of Severance. From last week's episode that this episode was probably going to involve rescuing Gemma from Lumen. In fact, I said that in my last video, and I'm glad to see that I was right. It's something I needed. But this episode did really manage to bring up some surprising questions that I had not previously considered with the any version of these people, because it really asks some tough things. At the start of this episode, we see Cobell, Devin, and Mark in the birthing cabin, and we finally get a really cool back and forth conversation between Innie Mark and Outie Mark. I really loved this scene. I thought it was a brilliant way to handle it. Using the birthing cabin and that camera to talk back to each other, that was a very smart choice, and I wondered, that must have been Cobell's idea. But it's during this back and forth conversation between Innie and Outie Mark that we come to realize just the weight of what they are asking for Innie Mark, because if all goes to plan and Lumen gets exposed for being the dirty, shitty company that they are, well then what happens to Lumen, and therefore what happens to the Innies? It's something I guess I really wasn't thinking about. I was mostly just siding with Outie Mark. I'm like, they took your wife, you need to get her back. But yeah, it's a great point. What's gonna happen to Innie Mark? That's the question that he's asking. And what's kind of strange though is it seemed like he had a little bit of a heel turn in terms of his motivation, because at first he seemed like he was definitely on board with rescuing Gemma and getting her out of there. But in this episode, he seemed like he was thinking of things and coming through to a conclusion of, well, wait a minute, what's actually in it for me? We see Helly right where we left her at the end of last week's episode, in the presence of that creepy freak Jaime Egan, and he starts talking to her. He tells her that he doesn't actually love his daughter Helena, which is not a great thing to say, but, and what's funny is he's actually saying it right to his daughter's face. I mean, that's just kind of fucked up, right? But he says that the reason he doesn't love her anymore is because he no longer sees Kier in her. But he does see Kier in Helly, and I guess it's that fire that Helly has, you know, that spunk, that attitude that makes her just stand up and resist people. Maybe Kier was somewhat like that. I'm assuming that there's going to be more to this whole conversation. He did turn around and walk out, so we didn't really get much with it, but I bet that's gonna have to come up in next season. We finally got a huge reveal about what these numbers are. They are kind of like what I was thinking. It turns out that these numbers are being used to program different parts of Gemma's brain, and each of these folders that Mark finishes is a different severed personality for Gemma. So as a matter of fact, he is essentially being forced to unknowingly torture this poor woman and his Outie's wife at the same time. What a complicated mess. I had a feeling that these numbers had something to do with coding and programming, but I had no idea it was going to be quite that sinister. I thought he was like programming toasters or something. Okay, that's not true. I didn't really think that, but still, I didn't think this. But it does leave me wondering, if Mark is sitting here and the stuff that he is doing is programming different personalities for Gemma, then what's going on with the numbers that Dylan and Irving are working on? Are they also contributing to fucking up Gemma's mind even more, or are they fucking up someone else's mind? And why is Gemma so crucial? What made them fake her death and take her hostage? And why Mark? I still have questions about that. And once Mark finally gets back to Lumen, he explains to Helly just what he has been asked, and he explains what he is worried they might be giving up. He thinks that there's a good chance they're all just gonna cease to exist. But Helly, being the strong, Kier-like woman that she is, seems like she's still gung-ho about this plan. I think that she hates Lumen so much that she actually might be willing to die just to stick it to them. Because in the end, she knows that she is not really that much of a person. She is Helena Egan, even if she has a separate consciousness. So I think Helly is looking at it a little bit more logical than Mark is. That is just one hell of a conundrum. It's not a situation that I would want to find myself in, and it's just highlighting how awful this whole thing really is. If you could sever yourself so that when you go to work, you don't feel it, or when you go like to the dentist, we saw that. Imagine that existence. Somebody's entire existence is having needles put in their mouth, getting root canals, getting fillings. Imagine if somebody's existence was sitting at the Social Security office. Damn! And Mark does finally finish Cold Harbor. Yay! yay! And we get a really awesome scene. As a result, in typical Lumen fashion, they have this creepy ass statue of Kier that is sitting there talking with Milchek. That was a disturbing scene, especially the fact that this guy, the statue, was actually kind of bashing into Milchek. I wondered if Milchek knew that it was going to say some of those things, because he did seem a little surprised by it. We do get a really awesome band march number, and Milchek, you could say a lot about this guy, but he has moves. I mean, moves like it's nobody's business. It's so good that if Milchek were to release a dance tutorial, I would consider signing up for that class, because I want to learn to move like Milchek. That was a great scene, no doubt about it, but for sure my favorite scene of this entire episode was that big burly man, Mr. Drummond, going up against Mark and Brianna fucking Tarth. I knew that they really only needed Mark to finish Cold Harbor, but I didn't think that this guy would straight up just turn off all loyalty he has to Mark and punch that guy square in the face, and he was throwing him around like a rag doll. I was getting some serious Kingpin vibes from this guy. The way he was tossing Mark around like a toy, it kind of reminded me of the way Vincent D'Onofrio was throwing Charlie Cox around. This scene was gold. It was awesome, so unexpected. I was not expecting that, and nor was I expecting to see Brienne of Tarth, or should I say Lorne, because in this show her name is Lorne, and by the way, her real name is Gwendoline Christie, but she gets to kick ass yet again, just like she did in Game of Thrones. You don't mess with this woman. This is Brienne of Tarth, and this big burly guy, he may be a big burly guy, and he may throw Mark's little ass around like a rag doll, but Brienne of Tarth? No. This is at least her second time kicking somebody's ass that was bigger than her, and I loved it. And I gotta be honest, I felt no kind of sympathy whatsoever when they were in the elevator, Mark and Mr. Drummond, and he switched personalities back to Audi Mark and ended up shooting Mr. Drummond. I was like, you know what? I am totally fine with it. You can go ahead and bleed out. You punched a woman, you fat bitch. And we finally get that moment that we have been waiting for 2 full seasons. We see Mark and Gemma reunited, and he sees her in the Cold Harbor room, which of course at that point she is not Gemma. She is a brand new personality that he just created. So obviously when he first enters this room, Gemma doesn't know who the hell he is. She doesn't even know who she is, but he does make sense to her. He manages to reach through to her and get her to come out into the hallway, and she switches back to Gemma, and we get that reunion. It was a very powerful moment, and I really loved it, but it didn't last. Poor Mark. After all this time of trying to rescue Gemma, going through all these motions, all that Gemma went through to try to get back to Mark, Mark helps her get out. He says, go through this door, you're free, but he doesn't follow her. I wish she would have grabbed his hand and pulled his ass through, because now Mark decided to stay at Lumen with Helly. I don't really know why. I mean, I guess I do. It's obvious he likes Helly and he really wants to spend his days with her. For him, Gemma is of no importance. She's nobody to him. But at the same time, what is the future of Lumen going to even look like? What is he staying behind for? I don't think it's going to be good, because now that Gemma is out, she is for sure going to blow the whistle on everything that Lumen has been doing. In season 3, we're going to see the fallout of that for sure. Maybe Lumen is going to be able to shut her up and cover up the whole thing. They are a very powerful, scummy, dirty company. But if Gemma succeeds and Lumen gets in major trouble, then the Audis are all going to be bleh. Anyways, so why Mark stayed around, I don't know. Is he planning on living down there? Is he never thinking of getting in the elevator ever again? And what do we think happened to Mr. Milchek? Because he spent a lot of this episode stuck in a bathroom trying to break out. Very determined, very, very dedicated to this job. This job that treats that guy like shit and gives him blackface paintings, but yet he remains extremely dedicated. But when he finally gets out of that bathroom, he sees an entire marching band and Dylan all ready to basically pound his ass into the ground, I think. It looked like at least he's getting a bad ass kicking. He might get killed. I don't think they're gonna go that far, but Milchek is in some trouble for sure. I thought this was a fantastic finale. I have not cheered this much during a TV show in so long. I was so loud while I was watching this episode, and I was by myself, you know, nobody really cared, so I wasn't offending anybody, but man, there were so many crowd-pleasing moments in this episode. This fight with Mr. Drum, Drummond, this back and forth conversation with Innie Mark and Outie Mark, this reunion, this answer to the goats. I guess the goats are just sacrifices, blood sacrifices for Kier. More strangeness for sure, but I thought this season really rocked. My overall score for this whole season is a 9.5. It could have been a little bit faster paced at times, but at the same time, if they rushed things too much, that would have probably lowered the quality and made for less intriguing and compelling storytelling. So I am fine with how things were. 9.5 is a great score. I think this is an excellent second season. It does improve on that first season, I think, and that is important. And I think that this second season finale is better than the first season finale. So we are improving, and I'm looking forward to seeing just how crazy things are for this next season, because it's gonna be a doozy. So that's my thoughts on this episode, the things I took away from this episode, my thoughts on this overall season as a whole. What did you guys think? What did you think of this finale? What did you guys think of season 2 of Severance? Put your thoughts in the comments and let me know. If you liked this video, please hit the like button so that I can know you liked it. I need a metric to know how much I suck or don't suck. And if you want to hear more things from me, subscribe to this channel. Later.